What would you do if your own family laughed at you the moment you walked in? I was ready to leave in tears, until my daughter whispered something in my ear that changed everything. What she said turned the whole night upside down, and you won't believe how it ended. Stay with me, because you have to hear this to the very last second. You know, there's a certain kind of anticipation that comes with family gatherings. It's a cocktail of excitement, nostalgia, and let's be honest, a dash of dread. As I drove over to Avery's house that Saturday afternoon, the radio played oldies, and the sun peeked through the clouds, making everything look a little more hopeful. I had my famous potato salad riding shotgun, wrapped in a checkered towel to keep it warm, and I was mentally rehearsing my hellos. I told myself, this year, it'll be different. No drama, just laughter and good food. But if you've ever been to a family gathering, you know that's about as likely as a diet working during the holidays. I pulled up to the curb, took a deep breath, and checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. Not bad for a woman who'd just finished a double shift cleaning houses. My hair was a little frizzy, but my lipstick was still holding on, and my blouse was only slightly wrinkled. I straightened my shoulders, grabbed the potato salad, and headed up the walkway, my heart thumping with a mix of hope and nerves. The front door was already open, and I could hear the familiar sounds of family. Kids squealing, someone clattering dishes in the kitchen, and the low hum of conversation. I stepped inside, the smell of roast chicken and fresh bread wrapping around me like a hug. For a moment, I felt at home. I spotted Avery across the room, her arms full of plates, her face lighting up when she saw me. "Mom, you made it," she called, and I felt a little of the tension melt away. But before I could even set down my potato salad, I heard it, the unmistakable voice of my son-in-law Chase. Now, Chase fancies himself a comedian. He's the kind of guy who thinks every family event is his personal open mic night, and unfortunately, his favorite subject is me. "Make way. The stinking cleaner is here," he bellowed, his voice booming over the chatter. The room erupted in laughter. Even the dog scout seemed to pause mid-tail wag, his head cocked as if to say, "Really, Chase?" I froze, my smile faltering. The potato salad suddenly felt like a lead weight in my hands. I glanced around the room, hoping for a friendly face, but all I saw were eyes on me, some amused, some awkward, a few pitying. My sister-in-law Jenna looked away, pretending to be fascinated by the dip. My grandkids, bless their hearts, just looked confused, not quite understanding the joke but sensing the tension. My cheeks burned, and I could feel my chest tightening, that old familiar ache of humiliation settling in. Have you ever wanted the floor to just open up and swallow you whole? That was me, right then and there. I tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out thin and shaky. I set the potato salad on the counter, my hands trembling just a bit. I could feel the sting of tears threatening, but I blinked them back. I wasn't going to give Chase or anyone else the satisfaction of seeing me cry. Why do family gatherings always come with a side of humiliation? I wondered. It's like there's an unspoken rule someone has to be the butt of the joke. And more often than not, it's me. Maybe it's because I'm the one who's always there, always helping, always cleaning up after everyone else. Maybe it's because I don't fight back. Not really. I just smile and let it roll off my back, or at least, I try to. I busied myself in the kitchen, arranging the food, trying to blend into the background. But the laughter still echoed in my ears, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider in my own family. I caught snippets of conversation. Someone complimenting the roast. The kids arguing over who got the biggest slice of pie. Chase still holding court in the living room, telling stories that always seemed to end with me as the punchline. I thought about leaving. Just slipping out the door, getting back in my car, and driving home to the quiet comfort of my own little apartment. No one would really miss me, I told myself. They'd have their fun, eat their fill, and maybe, just maybe, realize what it's like to clean up after themselves for once. But then I thought of Avery, her face lighting up when she saw me, the way she always made sure there was a seat for me at the table, even if it was just a folding chair squeezed in at the end. I thought of my grandkids, who still ran to me for hugs, who drew me pictures and told me their secrets. I thought of all the years I'd spent building this family, holding it together with love and elbow grease, even when it felt like no one noticed. So I stayed. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and forced myself to join the others in the living room. I smiled at my grandkids, ruffled their hair, and asked about school. I complimented Jenna on her new haircut, even though I knew she'd been avoiding my eyes. I listened to Chase's stories, nodding politely, even as my heart ached. But underneath it all, I felt something shift. Maybe it was the humiliation, Or maybe it was just years of swallowing my pride, but I knew I couldn't keep letting this happen. I deserved better. I deserved respect. And as I caught Avery's eye across the room, I saw something there, a spark of understanding, a flash of anger on my behalf. Maybe, just maybe, things were about to change. But for now I sat quietly, my hands folded in my lap, the laughter still ringing in my ears. I waited, not knowing that the real turning point was just around the corner, and that this family gathering would be one I'd never forget. I stood there, frozen in the middle of the living room, feeling like a deer caught in headlights. The laughter from Chase's stinking cleaner jokes still echoed around me, bouncing off the walls and ricocheting straight into my heart. It was as if time had slowed down, and I could see every face in the room, some grinning, some awkwardly glancing away, and a few, like my grandkids, just looking plain confused. Was this really how they saw me? After all these years, after all the sacrifices, was I just the family's running joke? I'd worked hard my whole life, raising kids, cleaning houses, making sure everyone had what they needed, even if it meant I went without. Sure, sometimes I came straight from work, hair a little messy, hands a little rough, but did that mean I deserved to be the punchline? I felt the sting of humiliation settle deep in my chest, a familiar ache that I'd carried for years, but never quite got used to. My mind raced back to all the times I'd been the butt of a joke, the one who was easy to poke fun at because I never fought back. I'd always told myself it was just family teasing, that it didn't really matter, but standing there in that moment, I realized how much it hurt. I glanced around the room, searching for a lifeline. Jenna was suddenly very interested in her phone, her eyes darting anywhere but at me. My grandkids, sweet as they are, looked up at me with wide, questioning eyes, not understanding why everyone was laughing at Grandma. And then there was Avery, my daughter, my heart, marching toward me with a look I hadn't seen since she was a teenager, and someone had said something nasty about her best friend. There was fire in her eyes, and for a split second, I felt a flicker of hope. But before I could process what was happening, my body's instinct to flee kicked in. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear anything else. I could feel the tears threatening, and I didn't want to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing me cry. I set my jaw, ready to bolt for the door, to escape the humiliation and lick my wounds in private. I'd done it before, slipped out quietly, made excuses, told myself it was better to leave than to make a scene. But just as I turned, Avery's hand shot out and grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Mom, wait," she whispered, her voice low but fierce. "Don't you dare leave. I've got this." Her words stopped me in my tracks. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the determination in her eyes. She wasn't going to let this slide. Not this time. For a moment, I felt like I was the child and she was the parent, standing up for me in a way I'd always tried to do for her. It was a strange, almost surreal feeling, but it gave me the strength to stay put, to see what she would do. Avery turned to face the room, her shoulders squared, her chin lifted. The chatter had died down, and now all eyes were on her. Chase, still basking in the glow of his joke, looked a little taken aback by her sudden presence. "Is there a problem, Ave?" he asked, trying to keep his tone light, but I could hear the uncertainty creeping in. "Yes, actually there is," Avery replied, her voice steady and clear. "I'm tired of the jokes. I'm tired of the disrespect. My mom has worked harder than anyone in this room, and she deserves better than to be laughed at for it." The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I felt a mix of fear and excitement bubbling up inside me, fear of what might happen next, but excitement that, for once, someone was standing up for me. Chase tried to laugh it off, but Avery wasn't having it. "No, Chase, it's not funny. It's never been funny. You think you're being clever, but all you're doing is showing everyone how little you appreciate the people who actually keep this family running." She looked around the room, her gaze landing on each person in turn. "How many of you have ever thanked Mom for everything she does? For the meals, the cleaning, the support? Or do you just take it for granted because she never complains?" I could see the discomfort spreading through the room. Jenna shifted in her seat, looking guilty. My brother-in-law cleared his throat and stared at his shoes. Even the kids seemed to sense that something important was happening. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen, not just as the cleaner, the helper, the one who always picked up the slack, but as a person who mattered. Avery squeezed my arm, her eyes softening. "You don't have to take this, Mom. Not from anyone. You've given enough. It's time they started giving back." Her words hit me like a wave, washing away some of the shame and replacing it with something stronger, pride. I stood a little taller, my shoulders relaxing as I realized I wasn't alone. Chase, clearly uncomfortable now, mumbled something about just joking, but no one laughed this time. The mood in the room had shifted. People started murmuring apologies awkwardly at first, but then more sincerely. Jenna came over and hugged me, whispering that she was sorry for not speaking up sooner. My grandkids wrapped their arms around my waist, telling me they loved me and that I was the best grandma ever. Even Chase, sheepish and red-faced, managed a quiet, "Sorry, Harper. I didn't mean it." For the first time in years I felt like I belonged, not because I was useful, but because I was loved. Avery's courage had given me a voice, and I realized I didn't have to accept being the punchline anymore. I could demand respect, not just for myself, but for every woman who'd ever been taken for granted. As the evening wore on, the atmosphere softened. People started sharing stories, not just about me, but about all the ways we'd helped each other over the years. There was laughter, but it was kinder, more genuine. I felt a warmth spreading through me, a sense of healing that I hadn't known I needed. And as I looked around the room, surrounded by family, I knew that things would never be quite the same again. I wasn't just the cleaner. I was the heart of the family, and it was time everyone remembered that. There are moments in life that sneak up on you, moments that you don't see coming but that change everything. As I stood there, still reeling from the sting of Chase's words and the awkward silence that followed Avery's confrontation, I felt a strange mix of emotions swirling inside me, hurt, embarrassment, but also a flicker of hope. I glanced at my daughter, searching her face for reassurance, and that's when she leaned in close, her hand still gripping my arm. Her voice was low, meant only for me, but the words landed with the force of a thunderclap. "You're the strongest woman I know. Let's show them who you really are." For a second, I almost didn't recognize the fierce, protective woman standing beside me. Was this really my little girl, the one I'd rocked to sleep, the one I'd comforted through scraped knees and broken hearts? Now here she was, standing tall, ready to take on the world for me. Before I could even protest, before I could tell her to let it go, or that I didn't want to make a scene, Avery turned to face the room. She let go of my arm and took a step forward, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "Hey, everyone! You know what's really funny?" she called, her tone light but her eyes sharp. The room, which had started to buzz with nervous chatter, fell silent again. All eyes were on her, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Without Mom, none of us would be here. She's the one who kept this family together, cleaned up our messes, literal and emotional, and taught us what real strength looks like. So, if you're going to laugh, laugh because you're lucky to have her. For a moment, no one moved. It was as if the air had been sucked out of the room. Chase, who just minutes before had been the life of the party, looked like he wanted to disappear into the couch. His face was redder than my potato salad, and he couldn't meet my eyes. Jenna put a hand to her mouth, her eyes wide with surprise. Even the kids seemed to sense that something important was happening. Their usual fidgeting stilled as they watched their mother take a stand. I felt a lump rise in my throat, and for the first time that night, it wasn't from humiliation, it was from pride. My daughter. My Avery was standing up for me in a way I never could have imagined. She wasn't just defending me. She was reminding everyone in that room of who I really was, of everything I'd done for this family. And as I looked around, I saw the truth of her words reflected in the faces of those I loved. I saw memories flicker across their eyes. Birthday parties I'd planned, scraped knees I'd bandaged, late-night talks over cups of tea. The countless ways I'd tried to hold us all together, even when it felt like I was falling apart. Avery reached for my hand and squeezed it, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "You don't have to hide, Mom," she whispered, "just for me." "You never did." I squeezed her hand back, feeling a surge of gratitude so strong it nearly knocked me off my feet. For years, I'd tried to be invisible, to keep the peace by staying in the background, by letting the little slights and jokes roll off my back. But in that moment, I realized that being quiet hadn't protected me. It had just made it easier for others to forget my worth. The silence in the room stretched on, heavy and expectant. Then, slowly, something remarkable happened. My grandson Mason broke away from the group of kids and ran over to me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "I love you, Grandma," he said, his voice muffled against my sweater. That was all it took. The tension in the room melted, replaced by a wave of warmth and affection. My other grandchildren, Ellie and Wyatt, followed, each offering a hug or a shy smile. Jenna came over, her eyes brimming with tears, and hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have said something sooner." Even Chase, who had been so quick with his jokes, shuffled over, his head hanging. "I'm sorry, Harper," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I guess I never thought about how it sounded. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not malice but ignorance. A kind of blindness that comes from taking someone for granted. I nodded, accepting his apology, but also knowing that things would be different from now on. The rest of the evening took on a different tone. The laughter returned, but it was softer, more genuine. People started sharing stories, not just about me, but about all the ways we'd helped each other over the years. Avery made sure I had a seat at the center of the table, not tucked away at the end. My grandkids vied for spots next to me, eager to tell me about their latest adventures. Even Chase tried to make amends, offering to help clear the table and wash the dishes, a first, as far as I could remember. As I sat there, surrounded by my family, I felt something shift inside me. For so long, I'd believed that my value came from what I did for others, from how well I could keep things running behind the scenes. But Avery's words had reminded me that my worth wasn't tied to my chores or my sacrifices. I was loved for who I was, not just for what I did. And maybe, just maybe, it was time I started believing that myself. Later, as the evening wound down and people began to say their goodbyes, Avery pulled me aside. "I meant what I said, Mom," she told me, her voice soft but steady. "You're the strongest woman I know. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small." I hugged her tightly, tears finally spilling over, but this time they were tears of joy, of relief, of gratitude. That night, as I drove home, the stars shining bright above me, I felt lighter than I had in years. I knew there would still be challenges, still be moments when I felt overlooked or underappreciated. But I also knew that I wasn't alone. I had a daughter who saw me, who valued me, and who wasn't afraid to remind the world of my worth. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly, deeply seen. The rest of the evening, oh, let me tell you, it was a hoot. After Avery's bold stand and that unforgettable moment of truth, the whole atmosphere in the house shifted. It was as if someone had opened a window and let in a fresh breeze, sweeping away all the old, stale air of unspoken hurts and tired jokes. My grandkids, who had always been sweet, suddenly seemed to see me in a new light. They started calling me Super Grandma, running around the living room with makeshift capes made from dish towels, pretending to save the world, or at least the family dog Scout, who was more than happy to play the part of the damsel in distress. Every time one of them called out, "Super Grandma, help," I couldn't help but laugh, the sound bubbling up from somewhere deep inside me that I hadn't visited in a long time. It was the kind of laughter that heals, that reminds you of who you are and why you matter. Even Chase, bless his heart, seemed to have undergone a transformation. He was quieter, more thoughtful, and I caught him watching me a few times with a look that was almost sheepish. After dinner, as everyone was clearing plates and the usual scramble for the door began, Chase surprised us all. He stood up, rolled up his sleeves, and said, "Let me help with the dishes tonight, Harper." I nearly dropped a plate. "I mean, miracles do happen, ladies!" The look on Avery's face was priceless, half proud, half in shock. Jenna nudged me and whispered, "Well, I'll be. Maybe there's hope for him yet." We both giggled like schoolgirls, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was part of the fun, not just the cleanup crew. As we stood side by side at the sink, Chase handed me plates and tried to make small talk. He apologized again, this time more sincerely, and I could tell he meant it. "I guess I never really thought about how those jokes sounded," he admitted, his voice low. "You do so much for all of us, and I'm sorry." Harper. I looked at him, this man who had married my daughter and become part of my family, and I realized that sometimes people just need a little nudge to see what's right in front of them. I patted his hand and told him, "It's never too late to start fresh, Chase. Just remember, respect goes a long way." He nodded, and I could see the relief in his eyes. It wasn't just about the dishes or the jokes, it was about being seen, being valued, and knowing that you matter. The rest of the family seemed to pick up on the new energy too. Jenna and I swapped stories about our own mothers, laughing about the things they used to say and do. My grandkids piled onto my lap, showing me their latest drawings and telling me about their dreams. Mason wanted to be a firefighter, Ellie a teacher, and little Wyatt announced he was going to be just like Super Grandma. I hugged them all, feeling their love wrap around me like a warm blanket. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was on the outside looking in. I was right there in the thick of it, where I belonged. As the evening wound down and people started to say their goodbyes, I found myself lingering in the kitchen, savoring the quiet after the storm. Avery came over, her eyes shining with pride and love. She hugged me tight and whispered, "I meant every word, Mom. You're the strongest woman I know." I hugged her back, feeling tears prick at my eyes, not from sadness, but from gratitude. Sometimes the people who love you just need a reminder of your worth, and sometimes you need one too. That night I realized that I had spent so many years putting everyone else first, making sure everyone was happy and cared for, that I had forgotten to care for myself. I had let myself become invisible, thinking that was what a good mother, a good woman, was supposed to do. But Avery's words, and the way the family rallied around me, reminded me that I was more than just the cleaner, the cook, the fixer of all things. I was the glue that held it all together. Driving home that night, the streets quiet and the stars twinkling above, I thought about all the women I know, friends, sisters, neighbors, who have felt the same way. How many of us have walked into a room and felt small, overlooked, or taken for granted? How many of us have laughed off the jokes, swallowed the hurt, and kept going because that's what we do? But here's the thing, we are stronger than we think. We are the backbone of our families, the keepers of traditions, the ones who remember birthdays and favorite recipes, who know just how to soothe a crying child or calm a worried heart. We are the storytellers, the memory keepers, the ones who make a house a home. So, next time you walk into a room and feel small, remember you're the glue that holds it all together. You are seen, you are valued, and you are loved. Sometimes you just need a little reminder. And if you ever need a boost, just imagine your daughter whispering, "Let's show them who you really are." Stand tall, smile, and know that you are enough, just as you are. As I pulled into my driveway and turned off the car, I sat for a moment, letting the quiet settle around me. I thought about the laughter, the hugs, the way my family had come together, not just because of me, but for me. I realized that sometimes, the biggest changes come from the smallest moments, a whispered word, a heartfelt apology, a child's hug. And as I walked into my home, I carried with me a new sense of peace, a quiet confidence that I hadn't felt in years. So, to all the women out there who have ever felt invisible or unappreciated, let me say this: you matter. You are the heart of your family, the light in your home, and the hero of your own story. Don't ever forget it. And if you enjoyed this story, if it made you laugh or cry or just feel a little less alone, I hope you'll stick around. Subscribe for more stories, more laughter, and more reminders that you are never, ever alone. Because here, we celebrate the women who keep it all together, one family gathering at a time.